These were the biggest decision makers in business and media, and their worst calls didn't just cost money, they changed what the world became. Today, 33 biggest fools who shaped modern history in boardrooms and studios. We're running through decisions that looked smart, until history laughed back. Example: Blockbuster laughed at Netflix. Stay for number 33. The last one is insane. First up, the digital camera Kodak invented, then quietly tried to forget. Kodak invented digital photography, then chose film profits. Kodak watched digital cameras reshape culture, while its film business kept shrinking. In 1975, Kodak engineer Steven Sasson built a clunky prototype digital camera. It weighed about 8 pounds and stored images on a cassette tape. The first pictures took around 20 seconds to record and looked pixelated. Executives reportedly called it interesting, then worried it would cannibalize film. So Kodak kept polishing film chemistry while rivals pushed sensors and screens. By the 1990s, digital sales finally grew, but Kodak arrived late and cautious. Phones turned everyone into photographers, and Kodak's moat vanished almost overnight. A company that invented the future ended up filing bankruptcy protection in 2012. 2. Blockbuster laughed at Netflix and missed the streaming era. Blockbuster ended up bankrupt, while Netflix became the living room default almost everywhere. In 2000, Reed Hastings pitched Netflix to Blockbuster as a handy online add-on. Hastings suggested a buyout around $50 million, which sounded laughably small. Blockbuster leaders, including CEO John Antioco, believed store-late fees meant steady cash. Netflix kept mailing red envelopes, quietly learning what Americans watched and rewatched. When broadband improved, Netflix flipped the switch towards streaming with frightening speed. Blockbuster tried its own service, but internal politics and debt slowed everything down. By 2010, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy, and stores began disappearing town by town. One awkward meeting rewired how the world watches movies on Tuesday nights. 3. Decca Records rejected The Beatles and music changed forever. The biggest band on earth was once dismissed as yesterday's sound. On New Year's Day 1962, the Beatles auditioned at Decca Studios in London. Brian Epstein hoped a contract would follow, and a record deal would stick. Decca A&R chief Dick Rowe passed, favoring safer acts for British charts. Producer Mike Smith had liked the group, but the final answer stayed no. Epstein walked out into cold London air, carrying rejection like a suitcase. Within months, George Martin signed them at EMI's Parlophone, changing everything fast. Decca ended up with the legend of that no stuck to its name forever. 4 lads from Liverpool learned that one door slamming can echo worldwide. 4. AOL-Time Warner merger became the internet age train wreck. It was billed as a new media empire, then turned into a corporate headache. In 2000, AOL's Steve Case joined Time Warner's Gerald Levin in a mega merger. Dial-up subscribers were treated like gold, right as broadband began taking over. Two cultures collided: fast internet hype versus old Hollywood and cable caution. After the dot-com crash, the promised synergies looked like smoke and mirrors. Accounting write-downs piled up, and the combined company reported staggering losses. Executives fought over strategy while customers simply clicked away to newer services. Eventually, the companies untangled, and the marriage was treated like an awkward phase. It's a reminder that timing can be more important than ambition. 5. New Coke replaced, a classic and consumers forced retreat. Coca-Cola tried to improve its taste, and America took it personally. In 1985, CEO Roberto Goizueta approved a sweeter formula after massive taste tests. Inside Coke, it was called a bold fix for Pepsi's rising popularity. Then the public reaction turned emotional, like someone replaced a family photo. Phone lines jammed, people hoarded old cans, and protests looked almost surreal. Coke's marketing chief Don Keough later described the backlash as pure heartbreak. After only months, Coca-Cola brought back the original as Coca-Cola Classic. New Coke stayed on shelves, but the story became a cautionary legend. It proved that brands live in people's memories, not just their mouths. 6. Nokia dismissed iPhone and lost the mobile world. Nokia went from global king to afterthought, while one touchscreen took over. When Apple unveiled the iPhone in 2007, Nokia executives saw it as pricey. Nokia's Symbian software was built for buttons, menus, and carriers calling shots. Inside Finland's Nokia campus, teams argued over touchscreens, apps, and fast updates. Apple shipped one device, then improved it yearly like a relentless metronome. Nokia's response splintered across projects, and decisions got slower, not faster. In 2011, CEO Stephen Elop called it a burning platform situation. Microsoft's partnership arrived, but the market had already sprinted ahead. The lesson was brutal. Hardware wins once, software wins every day. 7. Yahoo said no to Google and paid dearly later. Yahoo had Google in its orbit, then let it drift into a galaxy. In the late 1990s, Yahoo was the web's front door for millions daily. Google's Larry Page and Sergey Brin offered search power, not flashy portals. Yahoo leaders chased ads and media deals, treating search like a commodity. Years later, Yahoo even used Google Search, then replaced it as rivalry grew. Multiple acquisition talks fizzled, and Google kept scaling faster and smarter. By the time smartphones arrived, Googling became a verb, not a feature. Yahoo's brand stayed famous, but its grip on the web loosened steadily. It's like owning them all, then ignoring the store everyone actually wants. 8. Xerox PARC built the future and let rivals win. Xerox employees invented tomorrow's computer, and Xerox sold copiers anyway. At PARC in California, researchers built the mouse, Windows, and Ethernet networking. Engineers like Alan Kay and colleagues imagined personal computers for regular people. In 1979, Steve Jobs visited PARC and saw the graphical interface in action. Apple ran with the idea, turning it into the Lisa and then the Macintosh. Microsoft later pushed similar concepts to mass markets through Windows. Xerox had the breakthroughs, but management struggled to commercialize them boldly. PARC became a legend, like a lab where the future briefly sat down. Sometimes the smartest room loses because nobody upstairs takes the risk. 9. IBM let Microsoft own the PC software kingdom. IBM built the PC, yet Microsoft captured the rules of the game. In 1980, IBM needed an operating system fast for its new personal computer. Bill Gates' Microsoft supplied MS-DOS, sourced from Seattle Computer Products QDOS. IBM licensed the software instead of owning it outright, which seemed harmless. That choice let Microsoft sell similar systems to IBM's growing army of clones. Compaq and others copied the hardware, but they all paid Microsoft for the brain. Windows later rode that installed base, spreading into offices, schools, and homes. IBM stayed huge, but it no longer controlled the personal computing standard. It's like inventing a highway, then handing someone else the toll booth. 10. Nintendo snubbed PlayStation and created a mega rival. Nintendo tried to protect its turf and accidentally created its fiercest rival. In 1991, Nintendo and Sony were negotiating a CD add-on for the Super Nintendo. At the Consumer Electronics Show, Sony expected a proud joint announcement in Chicago. Instead, Nintendo's Howard Lincoln revealed a surprise partnership with Philips on stage. Sony executive Olaf Olafsson sat stunned, and Ken Kutaragi felt publicly humiliated. Nintendo worried Sony would control game licensing, so it yanked the deal abruptly. Sony regrouped, built its own console, and launched PlayStation in the mid-90s. That machine pulled developers, players, and cool marketing away from Nintendo fast. One betrayal turned into a billion-dollar revenge story in plastic and silicon. 11. Sony Betamax was superior yet lost the format war. Being better didn't save Betamax, and VHS quietly won the living room. Sony launched Betamax in 1975 with sharp picture quality and sturdy machines. Early tapes held less recording time, and that mattered on movie night. JVC's VHS offered longer recordings, and more companies licensed it widely. Video rental stores filled shelves with VHS because customers demanded convenience. Sony eventually opened licensing too, but the momentum had already shifted. Households chose whichever tapes friends owned, creating a social snowball effect. Betamax lived on in niches, while VHS became the household word. 12. Microsoft Zune challenged iPod and became a punchline. Microsoft tried to crash Apple's party and walked in wearing the wrong outfit. In 2006, the Zune launched with big promises and a chunky, friendly screen. Microsoft pushed wireless sharing, but the music limits made it feel half-baked. The famous brown model became a joke, even before anyone pressed play. Apple's iPod and iTunes already worked together like a well-oiled machine. Zune software improved, but the cultural moment had already passed. Even Halo-branded editions couldn't overcome the sense of arriving late. Microsoft later poured energy into phones and apps, leaving Zune behind. In tech, being second is fine, but being late is fatal. 13. Apple Newton arrived too early and flopped publicly. Apple bet on a pocket computer, and handwriting turned into a punchline. In 1993, CEO John Sculley unveiled the Newton message pad with huge confidence. It promised notes, calendars, and smart assistants, years before smartphones existed. Early handwriting recognition struggled, and cartoonists mocked it on newspaper pages. Developers hesitated, batteries drained quickly, and the price felt steep. Still, the Newton pioneered ideas like stylus input and personal digital organizers. When Steve Jobs returned in 1997, he killed Newton to simplify Apple's lineup. Later, the iPhone arrived with better chips, better screens, and better timing. The Newton failed loudly, but its ghosts lived inside modern mobile life. 14. Google Glass freaked people out and got pulled. Google built a futuristic gadget, and society responded with side-eye. In 2012, Google Glass appeared on faces at tech conferences and trendy parties. The tiny screen hovered near your eye like a pop-up window for reality. People worried about hidden recording, even when the camera light wasn't obvious. Bars and theaters banned glasswares, and the glass hole nickname spread fast. Google's Explorer program looked exclusive, but it also made backlash louder. Developers waited for mass adoption, yet public comfort never quite arrived. In 2015, Google ended the consumer push and pivoted toward enterprise uses. It proved that being early can feel like being socially wrong. 15. Netflix tried Quickster Split and backtracked fast. Netflix tried to split itself in two, and customers revolted in days. In 2011, Reed Hastings announced streaming would separate from DVD buy-mail services. The new DVD brand was called Quickster, with its own website and login. Prices effectively rose, and users felt punished for liking Netflix's old convenience. Social media flooded with complaints, jokes, and angry cancellation screenshots everywhere. Hastings posted an apology, admitting he moved too fast and explained poorly. Within weeks, Quickster was scrapped, and Netflix reunited everything under one roof. The company survived, but it learned that trust is fragile when habits break. One naming decision became a masterclass in how not to change prices. 16. Quibi spent billions on phone TV, then vanished. Quibi launched with Celebrity Sparkle, then disappeared like an app you forget. In 2020, Jeffrey Katzenberg and Meg Whitman pitched premium short shows for phones. Hollywood stars signed on, and the budget reportedly hit around $1 billion. Then the pandemic hit, and commuting stopped, crushing the watch outside premise. Quibi blocked screenshots and sharing, which strangled the very idea of viral buzz. Viewers asked why pay when TikTok and YouTube were already free. Deals with carriers helped, but the audience never formed a daily habit. Within months, Quibi shut down, selling pieces of its library elsewhere. It was a studio built for a moment that vanished before opening night. 17. Juicero sold a smart juicer you could hand squeeze. A $700 juicer became famous because you didn't need the machine at all. In Silicon Valley, Juicero sold sleek hardware that read special produce packets. The machine squeezed the packets, and the app tracked flavors like a tech toy. Then curious people tried squeezing the packets by hand, and juice poured out. Suddenly, the smart part looked like theater, not necessity, and jokes exploded. CEO Doug Evans defended the system, but the internet smelled weakness instantly. Investors backed away, refunds rolled out, and the company wound down quickly. The packet idea wasn't evil, just wildly overpriced for what it did. It became shorthand for tech-solving problems nobody actually had. 18. Theranos sold a blood test stream that collapsed. A Silicon Valley darling promised magic blood tests, then met reality in court. Elizabeth Holmes claimed Theranos could run hundreds of tests from a finger prick. She hired Sunny Balwani and stacked the board with famous, powerful names. Behind the scenes, the Edison machine struggled, and accuracy questions kept growing. Theranos partnered with Walgreens, putting testing centers in everyday retail stores. Whistleblowers raised alarms, and investigations exposed gaps between claims and performance. Holmes's black turtleneck image couldn't stop the collapse once evidence piled up. Trials followed, and the company dissolved, leaving patients and investors furious. It's a story of hype outpacing science, with real consequences for trust. 19. WeWork tried to IPO and imploded in public. WeWork went from hottest startup to cautionary tale before the IPO bell rang. Adam Neumann sold co-working as a movement, not just rented desks. SoftBank's Masayoshi Son poured in money, pushing WeWork's valuation skyward. Then the IPO filing revealed strange governance, related party deals, and private jet habits. Investors read the documents like a thriller, and confidence evaporated daily. A valuation crashed, Neumann resigned, and WeWork accepted an emergency rescue. Employees watched layoffs spread, while buildings stayed the same old office space. The brand survived, but the myth of tech real estate took a beating. It showed what happens when charisma outruns spreadsheets and basic corporate hygiene. 20. Sears missed e-commerce and watched Amazon eat retail. Sears once sold America everything, then watched shoppers click elsewhere. For decades, the Sears catalog was like a wish book in millions of homes. When online shopping rose, Sears had the brand trust and logistics to lead. Instead, investment drifted, stores aged, and innovation felt stuck in the past. In 2005, hedge fund manager Eddie Lampert merged Sears with Kmart, promising efficiency. Costs were cut, departments fought, and customers noticed emptier shelves and slower service. Amazon kept improving the online experience, shipping faster and offering more selection. Sears sold assets and closed stores, losing its place in American routines. It was a slow-motion fall from retail giant to nostalgic memory. 21. BlackBerry ignored touchscreens and watched smartphones pass. BlackBerry owned business pockets, then lost them to glass screens and apps. In the 2000s, BlackBerry devices were email machines with physical keyboards people loved. Co-CEOs Mike Lazaridis and Jim Balsillie focused on security and corporate carriers. When Apple's iPhone arrived, BlackBerry executives reportedly questioned the typing experience. Consumers didn't care, because apps and touch made phones feel like mini computers. BlackBerry rushed touchscreen models like the Storm, and critics pounced on glitches. Developers built for iOS and Android, leaving BlackBerry's app ecosystem thin. By the 2010s, BlackBerry shifted towards software and security services instead. A tiny keyboard empire fell because the future didn't need buttons. 22. MySpace chased music deals while Facebook took over. MySpace looked unstoppable, then got buried by a cleaner, quieter competitor. In 2005, News Corp bought MySpace, and Rupert Murdoch celebrated the trophy. MySpace leaned into music pages and ads, stuffing profiles with flashy clutter. Users fought slow load times, noisy designs, and pop-ups that never ended. Meanwhile, Facebook spread from colleges with real names and simpler feeds. MySpace tried redesigns and partnerships, but the vibe felt chaotic and dated. Artists used it, yet everyday users slowly drifted to Facebook's calmer experience. Tom Anderson stayed iconic, but the platform's influence drained away each year. It's the story of a party that got too loud to enjoy. 23. Dig redesigned its site, and users fled overnight. Dig tried to modernize and accidentally fired its own community. In 2010, Dig rolled out version 4 with a new design and algorithm. Power users hated the changes, saying their votes mattered less than publishers. Stories felt forced, like a magazine rack instead of a messy town square. Within days, angry users posted guides for leaving, and alternatives welcomed them. Reddit gained momentum, and Dig's front page looked emptier by the hour. Founder Kevin Rose tried fixes, but trust had already broken. Dig was sold and reshaped, losing the cultural role it once owned. It showed how platforms depend on users, not just code. 24. Record labels sued Napster and delayed music streaming. Record labels fought file sharing, and the war slowed their own future. In 1999, teenager Sean Fanning helped launch Napster, letting users swap MP3s. Millions joined fast, and music suddenly traveled at internet speed. Metallica sued, and the industry pushed lawsuits instead of better digital options. Courts shut Napster down, but copying didn't disappear, it simply changed shape. Piracy moved to new services, while listeners learned music could be instant. Apple later built iTunes, and streaming finally emerged as the obvious next step. Labels adapted, but years of hostility made fans feel like enemies. The irony is painful. Suing customers didn't create a better product. 25. Crystal Pepsi returned clear soda and nobody wanted it. A clear cola looked futuristic, yet tasted like confusion in a bottle. In the early 1990s, Pepsi launched Crystal Pepsi as a trendy, transparent soda. Marketing promised purity and a new vibe, especially for younger American buyers. Competitors answered with weird copycats, and the novelty wore off quickly. Some people expected lemon lime, then got cola, and their brains protested. Sales dropped, and Crystal Pepsi vanished, becoming a nostalgic trivia question. Decades later, Pepsi revived it briefly, hoping nostalgia would do the lifting. People tried it for fun, then went back to normal dark soda. Sometimes the idea is memorable, but the drink is not. 26. Ford Edsel became the most famous car flop. Ford launched the Edsel with fireworks, then watched buyers back away. In 1957, Ford Motor Company introduced Edsel as a whole new car division. The name honored Edsel Ford, but many Americans thought it sounded awkward. Marketing teased the car endlessly, making expectations bigger than any grill could satisfy. When the car arrived, quality issues and odd styling gave critics easy targets. A recession tightened wallets, and mid-priced cars suddenly felt like risky luxuries. Executives like Robert McNamara pushed data-driven planning, yet the timing stayed terrible. By 1960, Ford killed the Edsel line after huge losses and embarrassment. It became the punchline for hype, without product-market fit. 27. Segway was hailed as revolution, then sold to tourists. The Segway was introduced as the future, then became a guided tour staple. In 2001, inventor Dean Kamen unveiled a self-balancing scooter with massive hype. Early whispers claimed cities would be redesigned because walking would look obsolete. The device cost thousands, and many people felt awkward riding it in public. Regulations banned it from sidewalks in some places, complicating everyday use. Police and warehouse workers tried it, but mainstream commuters never fully adopted. Eventually, Segway tours became the big cultural image, not urban revolution. The brand was sold, and production later ended after years of niche demand. It's a case of technology winning technically, yet losing socially. 28. Concorde supersonic dreams bled money for decades. Concorde flew faster than sound, yet profits rarely matched the glamour. Britain and France built Concorde as a prestige project during the Cold War era. The sleek jet crossed the Atlantic in a few hours, stunning wealthy passengers. But sonic booms limited routes, and fuel costs made tickets painfully expensive. Airlines like British Airways and Air France kept it flying as a flagship symbol. In 2000, a tragic crash near Paris shook confidence in grounded fleets. Flights resumed, but demand weakened after 9/11 and rising operating expenses. Concorde retired in 2003, leaving museums and memories of futuristic travel. It proved speed is intoxicating until the math shows up. 29. 20th Century Fox bet big on Cleopatra and nearly broke. Cleopatra became a blockbuster spectacle that still nearly sank its own studio. Filming began in England, then moved to Rome's Cinecittà after endless problems. Elizabeth Taylor fell seriously ill, delaying schedules and inflating costs rapidly. Sets were built, scrapped, and rebuilt, while newspapers tracked every chaotic twist. Producer Walter Wanger battled budgets as Taylor and Richard Burton sparked a scandal. Director Joseph L. Mankiewicz rewrote constantly, often filming without a finished script. The production costs climbed past $30 million, shocking Hollywood's accounting habits. Even as 1963's top grosser, the movie initially lost money overall. Fox sold assets and reshaped itself, proving fame can still bankrupt you. 30. United Artists backed Heaven's Gate and almost collapsed. One Western helped topple a legendary studio that once courted auteurs. In the late 1970s, director Michael Cimino had huge clout after The Deer Hunter. United Artists let him film Heaven's Gate with minimal oversight and giant ambition. Days stretched into months, retakes multiplied, and the budget ballooned dramatically. When the first cut premiered, it ran extremely long, and critics attacked hard. The movie was pulled, recut, and re-released, but the damage was already done. UA's finances cracked, and the studio was sold and absorbed soon after. Hollywood tightened control, becoming less trusting of blank-check directors overnight. It's the moment creative freedom started needing a calculator, not just applause. 31. Ishtar burned cash and became a Hollywood punchline. Ishtar became famous for failure before most people even saw it. In 1987, director Elaine May filmed a buddy comedy with Warren Beatty and Dustin Hoffman. The shoot in Morocco faced delays, rewrites, and expensive logistics under harsh conditions. Costs rose, and rumors spread that the production was out of control. When the film arrived, reviews were brutal, and jokes traveled faster than tickets. Studio executives panicked, and marketing struggled to sell such an odd premise. Beatty later defended May, but the public narrative was already written. The movie earned a reputation as shorthand for wasteful Hollywood excess. Sometimes the loudest story isn't the film, it's the production chaos. 32. Waterworld cost a fortune and became a studio nightmare. Waterworld was called a disaster, even while cameras were still rolling. In the mid-90s, Kevin Costner starred in a flooded world epic on massive sets. A giant floating atoll was built, and storms repeatedly damaged the expensive rig. The schedule slipped, the budget surged, and stories of tension spread across Hollywood. Director Kevin Reynolds left, and Costner took more control, raising more eyebrows. Universal's executives watched the price tag climb, hoping spectacle would save everything. When Waterworld released, it earned money, but the huge costs made headlines anyway. International box office and later home video softened the blow over time. It became proof that nature can be the most expensive crew member. 33. Disney banked on John Carter and lost a fortune. Disney tried to launch a new franchise and instead launched a cautionary tale. In 2012, director Andrew Stanton adapted Edgar Rice Burroughs' Mars Adventure for cinemas. Taylor Kitsch played John Carter, whisked from Virginia to Barsoom's strange deserts. The marketing struggled because the title sounded bland and the story felt unfamiliar. Disney avoided the word Mars early, which left audiences unsure what it even was. The film looked gorgeous, but word of mouth never caught fire like Disney hoped. Costs were huge, and the box office returned far less than needed. Plans for sequels evaporated, and Disney quietly moved on to safer bets. It's a lesson in branding. Confusion can kill even a good-looking movie.